Where most people see only what is, others see what could be. Their minds are constantly flooded with new ideas, and they thrive on exploration, invention, and discovering hidden connections. These individuals leap from one concept to another, driven by relentless curiosity, always chasing something just beyond the horizon. But with that intensity comes a challenge. Their energy can become chaotic, and many of their projects are left unfinished as they're pulled in new directions by fresh ideas. Their growth lies in learning how to ground their visions in reality. Now contrast that with introverted intuition. This function operates like a slow-burning fire, quiet, intense, and profoundly insightful. People who lead with this function often experience sudden realizations that seem to emerge from nowhere. In truth, their minds have been silently processing patterns beneath the surface for a long time. They don't just perceive the world as it is, they intuit where it's headed. These insights can feel almost prophetic, as if they understand things before they happen. Yet because their thought process is so internal and abstract, they often struggle to explain how they arrived at their conclusions. This can leave others either mystified or confused. Each of these 8 Jungian cognitive functions represents a distinct way of interacting with the world. But no one is purely one type. Jung believed that while we each have a dominant function, the one we rely on the most, we also possess auxiliary, tertiary, and inferior functions that influence us in subtler ways. And here's where things get truly fascinating. Our weakest function, the one we suppress, often holds the key to achieving true psychological balance. Many of our struggles don't arise from overusing our strengths, but from neglecting the aspects of ourselves that we've pushed into the shadows. So the real question isn't just which type are you, it's deeper than that. Your personality isn't a single fixed function. It's a hierarchy of mental processes, a complex internal system where some functions take the lead, shaping how you think, decide, and engage with the world. Others operate behind the scenes, coloring your perspective in ways that aren't always obvious. And then there's the function buried so deeply in your unconscious that it can become your greatest blind spot, unless you learn to bring it into the light. Jung believed everyone had a dominant function, the central character of your psyche. It's the part of you that feels most natural and intuitive. A thinker, for instance, will instinctively lean on logic and structure. A feeler, on the other hand, will move through life guided by emotional intelligence and personal values. A sensor trusts what's tangible and present, while an intuitive is drawn to possibilities beyond the here and now. This dominant function typically develops early in life. It becomes the lens through which you process most of your experiences. But you don't operate with just one lens. If the dominant function is the protagonist of your inner world, the auxiliary function is the supporting character, balancing your psyche and adding depth. A person with dominant thinking might have feeling as their auxiliary function, helping them connect emotionally when logic alone won't suffice. Similarly, someone who leads with intuition may rely on sensation as their secondary function to stay rooted in reality. Though the dominant function holds the reins, the auxiliary function plays a crucial role in making you more well-rounded and adaptive. Then comes the tertiary function, a more subtle presence. It lingers in the background, not fully developed, but occasionally stepping into the spotlight. Some people begin to tap into their tertiary function as they mature, while others remain largely unaware of its influence. For example, a highly analytical extroverted thinker may have tertiary intuition, which can spark moments of visionary creativity. But because it's not their primary mode of operating, it stays underdeveloped, appearing only in certain situations. And finally, hidden. Deep in the unconscious is the inferior function, the one you struggle with the most. The inferior function is like your shadow. unpredictable, difficult to control, and often triggered in moments of stress or emotional conflict. It's the part of you that feels alien or uncomfortable, yet holds tremendous potential for growth. Take an extroverted sensor, for instance. They might have introverted intuition as their inferior function. This could make abstract ideas or long-term planning difficult for them to grasp. Or a dominant thinker might have feeling as their weakest function, making emotionally charged situations overwhelming and hard to navigate. This is where things get transformative. While the inferior function can feel like a weakness, Jung believed it represents the missing piece in your personal growth. The journey of individuation, the path to becoming whole, requires you to acknowledge and integrate the parts of yourself that you've suppressed. And this is not easy. The mind naturally resists change. A highly logical person may feel uneasy exploring emotion. A deeply emotional person might resist confronting cold, hard logic. But when we avoid developing our weaker functions, we risk becoming rigid, one-dimensional versions of ourselves. So ask yourself, have you ever found yourself completely out of your depth in certain situations? Maybe you're a strong intuitive, overflowing with ideas, but when faced with real-world details, you freeze. Or perhaps you're a structured thinker, but when a situation demands emotional sensitivity, you shut down. These moments of tension aren't just random, they're invitations. Your weaker functions are asking to be seen, developed, and integrated. We've been conditioned to push away certain emotions: anger, jealousy, selfishness, vulnerability, not because these traits don't exist within us, but because we were taught they shouldn't. A child told to always be nice learns to repress their anger. Someone shamed for crying begins to see vulnerability as weakness. Over time, these rejected aspects don't disappear. They sink into the unconscious, quietly shaping our behaviors from behind the scenes. But the shadow doesn't stay silent forever. It leaks out in unexpected ways, through sudden outbursts, self-sabotage, or an unexplainable dislike for people who reflect something we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. The more we ignore the shadow, the stronger its influence becomes. It doesn't go away, it grows roots. Jung didn't view the shadow as something to be feared. He saw it as a path, one that leads to self-awareness and healing. The goal isn't to eliminate your shadow, it's to understand it, to integrate it, to bring it into consciousness and accept it as part of who you are. Because when we stop running from the parts of ourselves we dislike, we gain something invaluable: wholeness. Recognizing the unconscious forces that shape our behavior allows us to break free from patterns we didn't even know were controlling us. In that awareness, true self-understanding begins, and this isn't just theory, it has real-world impact. Understanding Jung's personality types isn't some abstract framework. It's a tool that, when used wisely, can transform the way you approach relationships, career decisions, communication, and personal growth. Most of the conflict we experience, whether in relationships, work, or everyday interactions, doesn't arise because people are difficult. It happens because people process the world in fundamentally different ways. Understanding these differences can unlock powerful change. Let's take relationships, for example. A thinking type and a feeling type often clash. One prioritizes logic, the other prioritizes emotional resonance. The thinker might dismiss emotional concerns as irrational. The feeler might perceive the thinker as cold or detached. Misunderstandings build. Resentment grows, but once they understand each other's wiring, things begin to shift. The thinker starts to recognize that emotions aren't illogical. They're a different form of intelligence. And the feeler begins to realize that logic isn't an absence of care. It's a different way of engaging with the world. Instead of fighting each other's differences, they learn to work with them. In careers, your dominant function can mean the difference between thriving and barely surviving. An extroverted sensor, for instance, would likely feel drained in a slow, theory-heavy job that demands constant introspection. But that same person could thrive in a high-energy, hands-on role that values quick decision-making and practical results. Meanwhile, an introverted intuitive, someone driven by deep insights and abstract connections, would likely struggle in a loud, constantly social environment. But give them a role that requires long-term vision and quiet reflection, and they'll shine. Even our approach to problem-solving varies by type. Extroverted thinkers often externalize problems. They break them into steps, apply logic, consult data, and move quickly. Introverted thinkers, on the other hand, dive inward, analyzing every possible angle before reaching a conclusion. Intuitives are often visionaries. They look for patterns, deeper meaning, and abstract possibilities. Sensors are grounded. They focus on what's real, what's proven, and what works right now. Once you understand these tendencies, teamwork improves, communication improves. You stop seeing others as difficult and start seeing them as different. And that shift is everything, because self-awareness isn't just about knowing yourself. It's about understanding how you interact with others, how you respond to conflict, and how you move through the world. Once you understand how you think, how you learn, and how you make decisions, you stop forcing yourself into roles that don't fit. You stop resenting others for being different. And most importantly, you begin to navigate life in a way that feels natural, because you're no longer working against your own mind. Jung's personality theory has had a profound impact on modern psychology. It's influenced everything from career assessments to relationship counseling. But over time, many of his ideas have been oversimplified, distorted, or misinterpreted. One of the biggest misconceptions is that personality types are rigid categories that define who we are. In reality, Jung didn't see his typology as a set of boxes people are supposed to fit into. He saw it as a fluid framework, a way to understand psychological tendencies that shape the way we interact with the world. Personality is not a fixed identity, it's an ongoing process of growth and integration. One of the most common misunderstandings is the belief that people are only one type, either a thinker or a feeler, a sensor or an intuitive. Jung's model was never meant to categorize people so simply. Everyone has access to all four functions: thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition, but in different orders of preference. Your dominant function is your guiding force. It's the one you rely on most, the one that shapes the way you view the world. But your auxiliary function, your tertiary, and even your inferior function still play important roles in how you think and act. Imagine your personality as a tree. The dominant function is like the trunk. It's what holds everything up and keeps you grounded. The auxiliary function is like the branches. It adds depth and balance to your way of being. The tertiary function is like the leaves. It might not be as developed, but it still influences how you perceive the world. And the inferior function, it's like the roots, the part of you that lies hidden, often neglected but crucial for growth. Dismiss these functions, and you risk losing your balance, leaving you stuck in a one-dimensional version of yourself. But embrace them, and you unlock the full potential of who you can be. Another common misconception comes from the popular Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, which was inspired by Jung's work but significantly altered his original framework. The MBTI categorizes people into 16 types, usually represented by 4-letter codes like INTJ, FP, and so on. This simplified model suggests that personalities are fixed and unchanging, but that's not how Jung saw it. Jung believed that personality was fluid and evolving. It wasn't about labeling people as one thing or another. It was about understanding the natural development of their psyche over time. He called this process individuation. the gradual integration of all aspects of the self. The MBTI's static approach can give the impression that your personality is locked in place. If you take an MBTI test and are labeled as an INTJ, for instance, you might feel like you're confined to a rigid identity. But that's not how Jung intended for his typology to be understood. He saw it as a dynamic process, one that could change and evolve as you grow and mature. Personality, in Jung's view, is not a set of fixed traits you inherit at birth. It's an unfolding story, and your personal growth depends on how you engage with the different parts of yourself, the conscious and unconscious, the known and the unknown. The goal of individuation is to integrate these parts, not to lock them into predefined categories. Additionally, many people misunderstand the concepts of introversion and extroversion in Jung's model. The common assumption is that introverts are shy and extroverts are outgoing, but for Jung, these terms were about where a person directs their mental energy, not how social they are. Introversion and extroversion aren't labels for how comfortable you are in social situations. Instead, they describe the source of your energy. An introverted person directs their energy inward, focusing on their thoughts and inner world, while an extroverted person directs their energy outward, seeking stimulation from the external world. This distinction means that someone could be an introverted thinker, someone who is deeply introspective and reflective, but still enjoys socializing in certain contexts. Likewise, an extroverted feeler, who naturally draws energy from interactions with others, may still need time alone to process emotions. Jung's model invites us to see introversion and extroversion as more nuanced than the simple social labels we often place on them. It's not about whether you're shy or outgoing, it's about where you turn for energy. Understanding this distinction can change the way you perceive your own tendencies and even reshape your social interactions. You might find that your introversion isn't a social limitation, or that your extroversion isn't an emotional weakness. The path of individuation. By understanding Jung's theories in their original form, rather than through modern adaptations or oversimplifications, we gain a much deeper understanding of ourselves and others. Jung's typology isn't just about knowing your personality type. It's a tool for exploring the deeper mechanics of the human mind. The question isn't simply, who are you? But who are you really? We often define ourselves by roles, whether it's the role of a parent, a worker, or a friend. But the person beneath those roles, the core of who we are, remains hidden. Jung believed that many people never fully become themselves because they live according to these external roles, identifying only with one part of their psyche while rejecting others. Individuation is the process of integrating all these parts of the self. It's about embracing the contradictions that make us whole: strength and vulnerability, logic and emotion, order and spontaneity. These aren't opposites, they're complementary aspects of the same person. Individuation isn't about self-improvement in the traditional sense. It's about self-realization. It's the journey of understanding and accepting all the parts of yourself, even the ones you've neglected or rejected. The challenge of change. This process isn't easy. Our minds resist change. It's uncomfortable to confront the parts of ourselves that we've ignored or suppressed, and society often rewards those who fit neatly into predefined categories. But individuation isn't about pleasing others. It's about achieving inner harmony. It's about becoming whole by accepting the parts of yourself that society tells you to hide. A person who has undergone the process of individuation isn't rigid. They don't just think logically or emotionally. They know when to do each. They don't simply follow structure or intuition. They understand the value of both. They are free to move between different aspects of themselves as needed, creating balance in every situation. Most people live fragmented lives, disconnected from parts of themselves that they've never learned to accept. But those who complete the process of individuation reach a rare state of clarity where their thoughts, emotions, and actions align, not because they're perfect, but because they are real. As Jung put it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Jung believed that most people never reach their full potential because they are caught up in living out expectations, suppressing their instincts, and ignoring the deeper forces shaping their lives. They don't realize the importance of integrating all aspects of their psyche, including the parts they have been conditioned to reject. But individuation offers a path to break free from this cycle of suppression and fragmentation. This path is not exclusive to philosophers or psychologists. It is available to anyone willing to look inward and engage with their unconscious mind. The process is about accepting that we are not defined by one dominant function or a single role in society. It's about embracing the complexity of our minds and recognizing that we all have the capacity to grow, change, and become whole. Understanding your personality type is just the first step. It opens the door to self-awareness, but the real work comes in integrating all the different parts of yourself. Whether it's confronting repressed emotions, developing unacknowledged creativity, or embracing parts of your psyche that challenge you, the journey of individuation is a lifelong pursuit of balance and authenticity. The role of consciousness and the unconscious. Jung's work reminds us that our personalities are not static or fixed. Instead, they are shaped by both conscious and unconscious processes. The unconscious mind is a powerful force that influences our thoughts, decisions, and behaviors in ways we don't always understand. It is where the shadow resides. Those parts of ourselves that we have repressed or denied, but Jung did not see the shadow as something to be feared. He believed that bringing the unconscious into consciousness is the key to self-understanding. The goal is not to eliminate the shadow, but to integrate it. By accepting and understanding the parts of ourselves that we've ignored, we can break free from patterns that have held us back and unlock new possibilities for growth and self-actualization. As you engage in this process of self-discovery, you may find that your personality isn't as rigid as you once thought. The aspects of yourself that you've denied or repressed may emerge in unexpected ways, offering opportunities for change and growth. Jung's typology provides a framework for understanding these shifts and for embracing all aspects of yourself, both the ones you are familiar with and those that are hidden beneath the surface. The ongoing journey. This journey of self-realization is ongoing. It's not a one-time event, but a continual process of exploration and integration. Each stage of life presents new challenges and opportunities for growth. And the more you understand your psychological type and the dynamics of your unconscious mind, the more equipped you will be to navigate them. The process of individuation is not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more fully yourself, accepting the person you've always been beneath the surface. It's about reconciling the different aspects of your personality and finding a way to live authentically and harmoniously. As you continue on this path, remember that you are not alone. Every individual, regardless of their personality type, is on this journey of self-discovery. Jung believed that through this process, we can all reach a place of greater wholeness and authenticity. It's a path that leads not just to self-understanding, but to a deeper connection with others and with the world around us.